is tied up with string. These are a few of my favorite things.
Good morning. My name is David Deering, and it is my privilege and pleasure to be your worship associate for the month of November, Spirituality Month. Last week, I shared our search for spirituality by looking into deep space, way, way out in the cosmos. This week, I would like to take a little closer look, our own hymnal, Singing the Living Tradition. First, let me say that spirituality takes many forms. In the cosmos, I might say it takes the form of awe and wonder. But it also takes other unique forms, peace and stillness, for example. When we sing our hymns, we often, I think, just sing, okay? What I'm going to ask you to do today is when we sing our hymns is to listen for the words and pay attention to the words and maybe carry those words with you as you leave. There's a hymn, number 352, I don't ever remember singing it here, called Find a Stillness by Carl G. Seaberg. And these are the words he writes. Find a stillness, hold a stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony. And I believe this is why we have a silent meditation as part of our service. Hymn number 86, again, I don't recall singing this one particularly, but we may have. This is called Blessed Spirit of My Life by Shelley Jackson Denham. She shares these reflective words. Blessed Spirit of my life, give me strength through stress and strife. Help me live with dignity. Let me know serenity. Fill me with a vision, clear my mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me. I guess for me, spirituality is not only a way of life, but also an attitude towards life itself. Now, I did make a promise to Reverend Kent when I came here one day and borrowed the hymnal where I found these inspiring words. And I promised I would return it. And here it is. Coincidentally, this book was given by Gary and Cecilia Livesey in memory of Roberto Clemente. How many of you remember Roberto Clemente? Great. And for those of you who don't, Roberto Clemente was an outfielder for the Pittsburgh Pirates, my hometown, and several others of our congregation have connections to Pittsburgh. And he died in a plane crash on a humanitarian flight, bringing supplies to earthquake-stricken Nicaragua in 1972. Hall of Fame, 3,000 base hits. Who knows where his career would have gone had he not done the UU thing by giving his time and talents to help earthquake victims in Nicaragua. If you have been looking for a congregation where your beliefs are respected, griefs are comforted, joys are celebrated, your children are taught about other religions, concerns are shared, reason is honored, and your need to serve others is fostered, then perhaps you have found your home. Welcome to Tapestry, a Unitarian Universalist congregation. If you're a Facebook user, be sure to check and tell your friends what a wonderful congregation we are. Now, would you please take a moment to turn off your mobile phones or other devices that may be disruptive to our worship time together? And also to help maintain a contemplative atmosphere, please hold your applause until after the postlude is finished and the service is completed. Thank you. Now, I invite Connie Purcell, light our flaming chalice, the central symbol of our Unitarian Universalist heritage. Our flame is a symbol of transcendence, truth triumphing over the forces of superstition and fear. Our circle proclaims that the earth and all its inhabitants are one, and from the common container of this chalice we share a warm welcome of our beloved congregation.
Come in from the crisp morning air outside. Maybe not so crisp today. Come in wearing the autumn sunlight on your face. Come carrying the turning of the seasons in your heart. Whatever or however the greatness of life is speaking to you now, you're welcome here. Welcome in this circle of friends, this community of faith. And now for those young or young at heart, I have a story to share if you want to come join me down here on the carpet up front. So I found a couple of pictures to go along with this morning's story. What are we? So what are we seeing here? Yes, Liam.
It looks like a ninja carrying hay.
That is awesome. It looks like a ninja carrying hay. Unfortunately, this isn't a ninja. It's a farmer. This is a farmer in Iraq. There's a huge amount of wheat there, actually, that's very precious to the people. Is there a second picture up there as well? Great. So here are more farmers there. I picked these pictures because that's exactly what our story is about. There was and there was not a kind, hard-working farmer, the father of several lazy and greedy sons. On his deathbed, the farmer told his sons that he had buried their inheritance, a treasure, in a certain field near the house. Soon after he told his sons this, the farmer died. So without delay, these greedy, lazy sons hurried out to the field, and although it was much more work than they were used to, the sons dug up that entire field from one end to the other looking for the treasure. Alas, they found nothing. But it was early spring, and the land was alive with the first shoots and blossoms. So, having already plowed up the field in their search for treasure, the sons decided to plant wheat. And by midsummer, they reaped a beautiful, abundant harvest of wheat. Now, the lure of gold was still on their minds. And thinking that they might have missed something from their first digging, they unearthed the field again, a second time. And still they found nothing. But it so happened that this was almost a whole year later, and the land in its many ways was hinting of fruitfulness again. So the sons planted the field and reaped another rich harvest by summer's end. After several years of this same routine of digging and planting, the sons began to slowly change. They found that they could appreciate the changing of the seasons and the rhythms of planting and harvest and the satisfaction of their own work. Gradually, the lure of the hidden inheritance grew distant from their minds, and they became honest, hard-working farmers, and soon came to realize that their father, in fact, had left them the greatest treasure of all. Here ends our story about the farmers. So I hope you guys have a great class, and we'll see you all in a little bit. Today we get the extra special opportunity of welcoming 2 new members to our community. They're actually not new to the community, but they're new to joining Tapestry as official members. So Bill and Mickey, would you stand and join me up here? You can either, if you're comfortable, you can come up here or you can stay right there. That's okay. That's a good plan. Come up as well. Thank you for helping, Liam. So you've chosen to become members of Tapestry, and I'm really glad that this feels like a place that you can call home. We look forward to learning from you and learning with you. and helping as your own faith unfolds. We'll be here to celebrate sometimes, and we'll be here to bear witness to life's difficulties as they happen. You've been here a while, and you've had the opportunity to meet some of our folks, but I've asked Retha to introduce you a little bit more so we can all get to know you a little more quickly.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to introduce our new members to Tapestry. And first, let me tell you, until yesterday, Nick Renderer and Barb Daly were joining us also as members, and they've both gotten sick through the week. So in February, we'll be introducing several new members. So glad to have you here this morning. I'll start with Bill. Bill Kritzmeyer and his wife, Kay Ellen, were married over 50 years, and Bill was recently left a widower. Bill is missing her terribly and is open to support and friendship here at Tapestry. They have been longtime UUs, and his wife was choir director for a UU congregation back in Illinois. She was a true California girl and always wanted to return here. They finally made it here to California and settled in San Juan Capistrano when Bill retired after spending most of his career as superintendent of schools in Illinois. Kay Ellen and Bill have 4 grown children. Bill spent time as director of religious education for a time while living in Iowa. Bill is very supportive of the Orange County detainee program and has even offered a bedroom if needed in an emergency. Bill is still recovering from 2 knee replacements and doing his physical therapy. Many of you can relate to that. And Mickey McCullough comes from a family of 8 children and must have thought it went okay since her and her partner Edie raised 6 children. Edie left Mickey a widow about 1.5 years ago, and the life adjustments go on. Mickey has lived locally for many years. They lived 30 years in Huntington Beach, and then her and Edie traveled a lot. They even spent 14 years traveling around in an RV, living in that RV.
And actually, I've been in there too.
Yeah. Mickey has been an educator also and a principal for her professional years. She even taught at the Navajo Indian Reservation in Arizona for a while. She was a principal in Riverside and taught with the Apple computer back before the computer had a memory, if you can imagine. She was also a union rep where she was both loved and reviled by a few. That takes some constitution. Mickey is the mother of Bill Stoker and his wife Shannon. In fact,
Only Bill.
and grandkids, as you can see. And they brought Mickey to Tapestry, and we're delighted to have them all. If some of this information has triggered some curiosity about our new members, please meet with them afterward during coffee and snacks and inquire further. Welcome, you guys.
Thanks, Rita.
Thank you.
We're almost done with you, not quite yet. Unitarian Universalist congregations are covenanted communities. By joining Tapestry, you enter into a covenant with this congregation. We don't make any creedal test of membership. There's not some test of what you must believe. But we do ask that you participate with an open heart and an open mind, and that you share the resources of your time and money as you can. We ask that when things are less than perfect, which they will be sometimes, you work with us to make them better. Is that a covenant that you can agree with as we together strive to build a beloved community here at Tapestry?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Great. So there's one final step to joining, and that is signing our membership book, which is right there. And Amanda will help you with that if you need it.
Right.
She's supposed to do the date.
proud to be here.
So we've also, for this time of meditation, I invite you to settle in, to take a couple of deep breaths, and let us be at peace for a moment together. Let peace pervade our hearts, not ease or platitudes, just peace. Knowing that violence has struck many around the world, knowing that lawmakers of the great powers of our world are seduced by racism and intolerance, and also knowing that our community stands together, loving who's already here, and also welcoming the stranger with open arms. Knowing that we can make a difference, knowing that there is a greater love that embraces our world, whether we recognize it or not. Let us sit together for a moment in peace. Namaste. Amen, and blessed be. So we've spent November focusing on spirituality in our worship services. Unfortunately, I think it's too often associated with these grand moments of transcendence or yoga poses that seem to defy gravity, or dietary restrictions that cross-reference your astrological charts with your spirit animal. But it doesn't have to be that complicated. Today, I want to talk about the smaller, everyday encounters that can deepen spirituality, moment by moment. A friend of mine just gave me a virtual tour of his office from his iPhone. On the wall, there's a large sign that reads, "Happiness is not a destination, it's a way of life." It's incredibly cheesy, but it's also incredibly true. Happiness isn't the reward for a great accomplishment or something to be purchased with the money that we've earned. Happiness is something that you embrace all along the way. It's part of the journey. And it seems to me that spirituality is very similar. Spirituality isn't just a destination to arrive at or a goal to be achieved. Spirituality is more of a way of going about our day-to-day life. Now, we Unitarian Universalists have a pretty wide range of theology. I'm anxious to hear the results from the poll that our youth took last week about theology in the congregation. And the word God means a lot of different things for folks here. And regardless of that particular word, for most of us, there's something tremendously holy about the unfolding of the universe, the flourishing of life, the intense harmony and diversity that thrive in our tiny speck of a planet. We see the divine as a dynamic force in the world that over time has given rise to our very life. Call it God or goddess, call it nature, call it science, call it whatever you like. But that flourishing of life is amazing, and it's what most of us aim to connect with in our spirituality. To connect ourselves with a moving, growing, dynamic force, it seems that we also should be moving and changing a little bit. It reminds me of jumping onto a moving train. I've never done this myself, but I've seen it depicted in movies, and I'm sure all of you have as well. You've all seen this image running alongside the train, because to jump onto a moving train, you have to run with it and grab a hold of it as you can, and then hoist yourself up onto this moving train to get yourself aboard. If you try to get on the train just by reaching out from a standing position and grabbing it, you couldn't possibly hold on. It would slip right through your fingers. And I imagine if you were able to hold on, it would rip your arm right out of socket. To me, spirituality is sort of like running alongside this creative force of the universe, preparing yourself to jump on for the ride of your life. It takes some work and momentum to jump on that kind of unstoppable force. If you try to just reach out from standing still, it's going to slip right through your fingers. But if you move with it, not just move in any direction, but move with it, then you can begin to reach out and take a hold. It takes a concerted effort. In some ways, for us, the holy is a force of change in the universe. But in other ways, the holy is a single, stable, unchanging foundation, a quiet stillness, like Dave was talking about before, the stillness within, a resting place. A lot of different traditions point to that idea. In the Jewish and Christian tradition, God is seen in a lot of ways as the eternal and unchanging. And in the Eastern tradition of Taoism, the Tao isn't a personality like God, but it's something that was there before anything else. It's the silence before the bang, the nothing before the something. Some of us are drawn to that sort of still, stable notion of the holy. In our spirituality, we seek a solid, unchanging foundation to rest our lives upon for a moment. Oh, resting sounds nice and easy. But finding stillness in our heart and mind, I fear, can be even more difficult than running to catch a locomotive in action. Melding ourselves with that sacred stillness is difficult because nothing about our human lives is still. Every minute our heart beats 80 times. Adults breathe around 18 times per minute. Every minute our bodies are aging. We're feeling pain and pleasure. Every second, hundreds of electrical pulses, these synapses fire in our brains, and that's when we're resting and not even thinking. That number skyrockets when we try to do something. How then are we to build a relationship with a sacred stillness that we long for? By slowing down, by stopping, by paying attention to the moment and every breath. We connect with the sacred stillness by quieting our mind and letting go. It's not daydreaming. It's actively clearing house, decluttering of our consciousness, if just for a moment. Spirituality, as I see it, involves binding ourselves with a creative process of the universe or building a relationship with a sacred stillness. Either way, it takes a good amount of effort and attention. It takes regular, small pieces of effort, not the rare Herculean feat. On Thursday, both afternoon and evening, I led a couple of conversations about spirituality, and we read through a list of quotes on the topic, including this morning's centering thought. It says, "Zen does not confuse spirituality with thinking about God while one is peeling potatoes. Zen spirituality is just to peel the potatoes." Both times that quote was read, a giggle arose in the group. I love that about Zen Buddhism. It has a sort of playful, parabolic sense of humor. And as silly as it sounds, this lesson about peeling potatoes is actually a great description of Zen Buddhism. Zen is about being in the moment, whatever that moment is. It's about simply peeling potatoes or simply cutting carrots. It's about letting everything else go, even imagining how good that soup is going to taste. It's all about paying attention to this particular, tiny, holy moment. It's an exercise in stillness. Zen does not confuse spirituality with thinking about God while one is peeling potatoes. Zen spirituality is just to peel the potatoes. Now, Buddha and Jesus both spoke about really simple things, if you're familiar with their stories. They told stories about working men and working women and their common ailments. They used nature and food as the backdrop most of the time. And these sages spoke in the simplest terms about everyday life. Think about it. Jesus talked about growing grain and making bread and carrying water and tending the garden and needles and thread. His primary metaphors for a religious leader were a shepherd and a fisherman. Now, the monks and priests who came after these leaders dreamt up all sorts of grandiose visions about what the holy life was and what spirituality should be. And maybe that's why the growing masses are calling themselves spiritual but not religious. They've found that the ornamentation and gatekeepers, the rules and edifices of a lot of religion have very little to do with our human desire to connect with the holy every day. Spirituality is simple. Our story during the time for all ages is all about that simplicity. How many times do we learn in life that the most valuable treasure isn't the silver and gold, but the legacy of family and friendship and reliable, meaningful work and a connection to the earth? It's a sweet story. One of the things that was striking to me about this rendition of the story was that the thing that attracted the brothers at first, the thing that converted them, wasn't their rich wheat harvest or the bread that they made with it or the money that they made with it. It was the rhythm. The story says, after several years of this routine, the sons began slowly to change. They found that they could appreciate the changing of the season, the rhythms of planting and harvest, and the sacrifice of their own labor. It wasn't the money or the bread. It was the steady rhythm of life that the cycles of planting and harvest provided. So rather than looking for the extraordinary, unusual, smack-you-in-the-face enlightenment moment, we can also turn to the basic rhythm of life as an anchor for spirituality. So far, the most helpful meditation tool I have found, and mind you, I've been at this pretty seriously for a long time, the most helpful thing I have found is paying attention to your own breath. Not controlling it, just paying attention to it, and that steady rhythm. But rhythm and spirituality can also be found in great crowds of people on the dance floor. When I was first coming out in the gay community 20 years ago or so, dance clubs were the gathering spot, sort of the only gathering spot, sadly. But the sense of release and healing that develops on that dance floor is huge. After years or decades of isolation, dancing with your people to your music is tremendously powerful. And dance functions that way in other communities and other times. I'm going way back, but that's what swing dance was all about. When the world was falling apart, people danced. Now, real swing dance originated in African American communities before World War II, but swing stayed around through the war. It kept a country engaged in a physical, dazzling, fun form of entertainment. While the world was falling to pieces, young people were dancing. It didn't save soldiers' lives, but it did heal some broken hearts and spirits. Spirituality happens on the dance floor too, if there's a rhythm. Rhythm is about the simplest things around. Our constant breath is a deep resource for connecting with that still, immovable source of all. And the rhythm of music and drums can inspire us to move with the Spirit, to align our beings with the dynamic, unstoppable, creative force of the universe. This time of year, I find myself keenly aware of the rhythm of the seasons. The days have gotten really short, and I love the sun. It's actually every year, this is a very melancholy time for me. I have to make myself go outside during the day to enjoy the sun. And as the days get even shorter, I embrace the holiday moments as opportunities for joy, because I know I need them. This sermon is about everyday spirituality, and the holidays are full of little bits of spirituality. The simpler, the better. Baking cookies, singing with people that you care about, a cozy bed, pajamas, morning coffee. All these things are little opportunities for joy and nurturing our spirit. It's taken a while, but I've grown to appreciate tradition. Traditions don't cost very much money. They take a little bit of time, but not too much. But the beautiful thing is that we're practiced at them. We know how to do them. We don't have to think about it. Most of the holiday traditions in my past are anchored in my parents' home, but one of them I've been able to bring with me over the years. It's banana nut bread. To be more specific, it's Mandy's banana nut bread, my great-grandmother who immigrated from Germany. The recipe came in pinches and scoops, and things like oleo. My mother fortunately translated it into actual measurements, so that when I now make it, the smell transforms my kitchen into a childhood smell of warmth in the coldest days and the darkest time of year. Like a lot of our daily tasks, these little holiday activities depend so much on the intention that we put into them. We can either rush into the holidays with an overwhelming to-do list, or we can embrace the opportunities that come with the season. Because that's all they are, is opportunities for joy. Failure to curl your ribbon correctly is not going to induce Armageddon. And your precious niece and nephew will survive without the perfect gift, and burnt gingerbread men are not going to seek revenge. Fortunately. As this week kicks off a marathon of commitments and holiday activities, let us welcome them as opportunities for simple moments for joyful connection with the Spirit of life. They're opportunities, not necessities. So I began this week saying that I don't care all that, or that this month rather, saying that I don't care all that much about spirituality. I said I care much more about how we respond to that mystery and wonder. And I stand by that. In our religious tradition, we ask, why? Why does what we believe matter? What impact on the world does this have? So just last night, several of us Tapestry members were gathered to watch a documentary film about the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the end of World War II. And basically massive moral failure on the part of world leaders around the globe. One of the historical figures in this film said, "We had been at war for so long, we couldn't remember what peace was like." Now, I'm not equating our everyday life with the horrors of war. Some of us do face tremendous challenges, though. And we who don't face such hardship often manage to whip ourselves up into such frenzy really quickly and easily. So I guess this quote from the movie about World War II reminded me that whoever we are, sometimes we have to remind ourselves about peace, remind ourselves that it even exists. He said, "We had been at war for so long, we couldn't remember what it was like to be at peace." And this is why spirituality is important. Not to achieve our spirituality merit badge, not to brag or to feel better than others. It's important because it reminds us what it's like to be at peace, so that we can think and feel and act out of something other than self-defense. So that we can remember that the frenzy of this present moment isn't all that there is. And so that at the end of the day, that there's some love left over for our children, for our friends, and our parents in their time of need.